Wow, the crew is awesome here at Morning Joy, your morning show here on Guadalupe Radio Network. Join us to hear Adam Bly, Debbie Georgiani, Monsignor Charles Pope, Dave Palmer, Cecil Anderson, and the team keeps growing. Wow, we are so blessed to have this time together each morning, whether you're driving to work, preparing breakfast, taking kids to school, or just tuning in because you love what you hear. Weekday mornings, 6 a.m. Central, 7 a.m. Eastern on the Guadalupe Radio Network. Morning Joy, where truth matters.
Thanks for listening to KATH 910 AM Frisco, Dallas, Fort Worth on the Guadalupe Radio Network in North Texas. Catholic radio for your soul. Heard also at grnonline.com and on your smartphone.
Welcome to The Quest from the studios of the Guadalupe Radio Network. Join us as we journey together on this pilgrimage of faith. And now your host, Sarah Soto.
I'm my Catholic wife, mama, and speaker. For more information or to contact me, you can visit my website at sarahsotospeaks.com. Feel free to use that information to send me a message and tell me that I talk too much. People love to tell me that. But it's good when you talk a lot and you have a radio show. Listen, we were formerly a Life Lived Joyfully, and we have just rebranded and relaunched, and now we are The Quest because we are on a pilgrimage of faith together. Our fantastic producer, Matt Maloney, has shared that a quote from St. Therese of Lisieux, which is that, I'm going to get it wrong. Maybe you can call in and correct me. Something about this world is not our home, rather it is our ship, and we are all journeying towards communion with the Most Holy Trinity for all eternity. Fingers crossed. Just kidding. I'm very excited about today's show. Have you ever, if you're a longtime listener, you know, you're like, gosh, it's this Sarah. She's on Mondays and Thursdays. She's always so excited. Doesn't matter who the guest is. It's just like I'm so excited. But it's true. I wouldn't lie to you folks because I don't have to go to confession. It's a whole thing. But anyway, I am very excited about today's guest. He is what is it? Well, it's not recycled. That's not the right word. He's been on before.
That was nice. That was a nice intro.
He's been on before.
We say returning.
Oh, on the radio?
Yeah,
our recycled guest in the
that's
studio.
the respectful way.
Yeah, it didn't sound right. Our returning guest, I'm going to say it two different ways. I'm going to say it the way us Hispanic Texans say it, and then I'm going to say the way, well, I'm a quarter Irish, so, well, the other quarter of my family says it. So we have Mauricio Romero as a guest today, or Mauricio. I've heard a lot of Maurizio, which is like, it's very, we don't have a whole lot of Italians here in Texas, but they really like to milk that Mauricio Romero in the studio today. Thanks for joining us again, a returned guest, Mauricio Romero, or Mao for short. Welcome back to The Quest. It's good to have you.
Thank you.
For those of us who weren't here, well, I was here. For those of you that didn't listen to Mao's first show with me, I call him Mao. He's not just a guest. He's like family. So we nickname family here in Texas. And so Mao or Mauricio, why don't you tell our listeners who didn't hear you the first time, a little bit about yourself and your background.
Okay. Well, I am. I guess I call myself a pastoral designer and entrepreneur. So I've been, I'm going to do your intro, right? It's like, I'm a pastoral designer, entrepreneur, I'm a dad, and what else is it? And a talker.
Don't make fun of my intro. I wouldn't call you more of a talker. And that's actually a really good intro into what we're going to talk about today. Sometimes we shouldn't be talkers, but we'll get into that in a minute. So you're a dad. Did you say pastoral designer?
Pastoral designer and entrepreneur, yeah.
You can't just be making stuff up.
You know what? I could. So I come from the marketing background. So like way back in my previous life, that's what I used to do. I used to, be in branding, communications, like that kind of stuff. So I like naming things, and that's just
naming things, name calling. I mean, it's kind of it's a mixed bag.
I used to name call a lot, but not anymore. But now essentially what I do is I help right now parishes come up with pastoral plans for their parishes. So, and I do this specifically through designing pastoral experiences and developing pastoral systems. So yeah,
Sounds really
I
fancy.
also so that's what I do. So I have my own consultant. So consulting firm for for these kinds of things, and I also have a job. So I'm a director of development. So I guess so. My day job is director of development, and my every other moment of the day, whenever I'm not being a dad, it's that. Yeah.
Okay. And if someone wants a pastoral design or pastoral plan, which is very unique, how can they find out more about what you do? You have a website or
Right now, you can reach me through email.
Okay.
So it's Mau, it's MAU at discipleship.com.
Discipleship period, like the punctuation mark?
Mm-hmm.
Ah, Mau, MAU at discipleship, an actual period, .com. No.
No, discipleship, the word period, and then .com.
Discipleship period.
So yeah, the name is
Okay, okay.
So where does that come from? We spend literally millions of dollars in the church trying to come up with mission statements, for parishes, for dioceses, like for all these things, right? For our ministries. But the reality is that we already have a mission, right? It's called the Great Commission.
Right.
And the Great Commission says that we're called to go and make disciples of all nations. So instead of trying to figure out like what our mission is, it's like what we should be thinking about is how do we implement that mission in our parishes, in our ministries, in our dioceses. And the funny thing is that I know parishes, and I've worked with parishes that have literally spent thousands of dollars coming up with like a mission statement or like a vision statement, and nothing comes of it. Like literally nothing comes out of it because they spend like 6 months, a year, like sometimes
grand.
like 2 years, and no, not even 10 grand, like sometimes way more than that. And they come up with a nice, sounding mission statement.
Can I say if there's someone here in charge of money at a parish and they're looking to let go of 20 G's, give me a call. You can reach me at sarasotospeaks.com. I'll write you a mission statement right now. Through the guidance of the Holy Spirit, we have come together as a parish for all communities, open every single door to the mission of Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of.
I mean, and it's sad because it's not that these efforts are meaningless, but they're incomplete. So, and go into any parish, grab a parish bulletin, and they have their missions, their mission statement, and then you look at the parish and you're like, well, how does this actually translate? Did you actually accomplish anything? So it is in the activation of strategy that where we fail. So whenever you're looking into, it's like, okay, how do I actually do this? It's like, what does being pastorally successful, for example, like what does that even look like? And the reality is that we just don't know. Because in the church we've never been trained to do anything like that.
I say it's baptizing every infant born in your parish.
But how do you do that? I mean, and that's the thing, because that's part of the Great Commission, by the way.
Right. Yeah.
It's like make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. So it's like right there, and then it's like and teaching them everything that I have taught you. Right. So like if you want your plan, that's it. But there's like, what does that actually look like at a parish level, or at your ministry level, or how do you actually implement it? That's where it gets difficult. Right?
Yeah. So if people want to, so that's discipleship, period?
Period. So because that's what we're supposed to be doing, just discipleship, period. Yeah.
It's so simple. It's like anyone could do it. I mean,
anyone should. I mean, the thing is that everything's there. Everything's in the Gospels. Everything is like, if you look at the Bible, everything's there. We believe in a God of order, right? So whenever we look at Jesus' public life, and there's order there. So we just have to figure out like, what are the patterns? Like, how did he actually make these disciples, right?
He formed people. He walked with him.
The funny thing is, you would see it's like, well, he just went up to Peter and and Andrew, and he said, follow me, and they followed, right? like immediately the gospel service.
Not
like
recommending anyone
immediately
try
follow.
that outright in 2024 on the street. I mean, you could, and I just don't hold me responsible.
Well, there's a few steps before and a few
Yeah.
steps after that, right? So like first they were Jesus taught them, right? Like so he
Right.
was there, he was teaching them. Then he showed them a sign, right? So it's like he sent them out to fish, and then he showed them a sign. And then whenever he made the call, they actually came. They followed him, and they left everything immediately.
Yeah.
But then there's a very specific thing that happens afterwards too, because it's like, why were they called, right? So and the first and foremost is they were called to be with him, and so that they could be sent out.
Yeah.
So if you want your framework, like right there, just of you, it's like, how did Jesus actually do this? So he formed them, he showed them signs, he called them, and then eventually he called them to be with him, so that they could be sent out.
So don't read the passage of the Great Commission and say, all right, I'm all set to go without
Just
the
let
proper
me
formation.
grab my water.
Let me grab just sandals on my feet and don't even, it's, there's a lot, I mean, I could talk forever and ever and ever about it, but that's what you get when you end up at some church in the Appalachian Mountains where they're like, we're supposed to pick up snakes, venomous snakes, and we won't get hurt, and they're like dying because they're being bit because they don't have formation, right? They don't have the proper, I mean, you just can't. Listen, I love the zeal. I'll be right behind you, right? Just like, yes, Jesus, Jesus is awesome. But yeah, you have to have the proper formation, and that's what we're going to talk about today on the show. So we have a really, really good show for you in store today. I'm in the studio with Mauricio Romero, who you can reach at Discipleship, that's all spelled out, .com, who does a lot of really amazing things. But today, specifically, we're going to talk about discipleship and accompaniment. It's not just a one and done thing. It takes work, it takes effort, and I know you don't want to hear this, but it's going to take you becoming holy, and we'll talk all about it. Maybe you do want to hear it because you listen to Catholic radio. I'm your host, Sarah Soto. I'm with you Mondays and Thursdays here on the Guadalupe Radio Network on the newly rebranded, formerly A Life Lived Joyfully, now The Quest. You can listen every Monday through Friday at 4 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Eastern. Download our Guadalupe Radio Network app or listen at grnonline.com. We'll be right back.
Guadalupe Radio Network announces the launch of La Promesa Legacy Circle, formed to recognize and honor our dedicated donors who have made long-term commitments to the network through gifts from their estates. We invite you to join our family and allow us to be a part of your personal legacy. For more information on making a legacy gift for the benefit of the GRN and a guide to charitable estate planning, contact our friends at the Catholic Foundation at 972-661-9792 or info@catholicfoundation.com.
Monsignor Charles Pope here. A Life Lived Joyfully is now The Quest. As St. Therese of Lisieux said, the world is your ship, not your home. Let's journey together on this voyage to heaven. Each Tuesday and Friday, I'll take a look at interesting headlines affecting the church and the world. Tune in each weekday afternoon for The Quest, 4 p.m. Central, 5 Eastern, right here on the Guadalupe Radio Network.
Welcome back to The Quest, an extraordinary journey where every step brings us closer to discovering God's love for us. Want to join the conversation? Give us a call at 877-757-9424.
Hey y'all, welcome back to The Quest. I'm your Monday, Thursday host, Sarah Soto. In the studio today, I have a good friend, one whom I don't love to compliment. You have any friends like that? Actually, so Mauricio Romero, our guest today, and a good friend of ours, is having dinner with a mutual friend, and I contacted the mutual friend and said, listen, I need you to take a log of any time he pays a compliment to me and says, oh, Sarah's so great, or Sarah's so this, because he won't do it to my face. And I like to keep a catalog of all the times that he says something nice about me. But now he knows, so he'll probably keep very tight-lipped. So Mauricio Romero with Discipleship, director of development by day and father of just like
6. All girls.
Radio's so great, but sometimes I wish you could have seen his face.
It's fun, by the way.
No, I know.
It is super fun.
I know. And I, for some reason, spent like 6 hours with them today. I don't know why. I got lost track of time. But Mauricio, so you're not an old guy, but you've been married for a while. How 22 years?
21.
21 years.
21, yeah. I was married at 22. So I've been married for 21 years. That's 43, my math is correct. And I know my own age.
You're 43-year-old, 43 years young,
Yeah.
with 6 beautiful and like shockingly sweet and pleasant and smart young women that are just so level-headed. I just, even though we don't love to compliment each other, sometimes his children are so great, and I know that reflects. Children are reflections of their parents. And
Can't deny it.
yeah, I know. I want to deny it, but I just can't. Their mom is really awesing.
It's all thanks to her.
It's definitely thanks to her.
I just take the credit.
Yeah, exactly. I was with your 15-year-old, and I think she was just sharing some stories about some of her friends, right? Maybe some struggles that they have, and she said, and it was in this that I realized my parents did a really good job raising us. Just seeing the other, like the difficulties that parents have with their teenagers, and she's just like, to have a 15-year-old be like really stoked about the way they've been raised is just like mind blowing. I mean, you couldn't pay me to spend time with my parents when I was 15, and they like really like you, which is so weird. Maybe we'll do a whole show on how to make your kids like you without forcing it. But today I invited you on to talk about discipleship and accompaniment, which there's so much to be said. Shows upon shows upon shows of content, but discipleship's a journey, right? It's not like a magic wand you wave. You're discipled.
I know. It almost seems like a disciple Jesus calls you, and then you follow him, and then that's it. Like magic, you're already a disciple.
I know I'm going to heaven when I die.
I know. It's but it really is a journey, and it's a journey that goes through different stages, right?
Yeah.
So it's very interesting because if you look at the Gospels, you see the progression of like in the apostles themselves, how they go from stage to stage, right? So like at one point they started in the crowd, right? Like they were just listening with everybody else.
Right.
Then eventually they're called, and then they become like one of the 72, right? Then eventually, like some are called to be 12, and then Jesus has like the 3 that are closest to him, and then you can go all the way to 1 with John, or like the beloved disciple, like
The one that Jesus loved. So I write about myself.
So it's like you can see that, and there's different mindsets that are really present throughout that whole thing. I don't know if you mention it or if I mention it. So I do have a master's in theology. Not that makes me an expert, but
I didn't mention it. Just so
I know, right? It's like, who is this guy? Why is he talking about this?
Yeah, I mean, because you could just nowadays anyone could have a podcast, and you're like, I know exactly.
Yeah. Now I could have a master's degree and still be making things up. So
that's true. That's true.
But I take a ridiculous amount of effort to not deviate from anything that the church teaches. And honestly, what I do is like I don't do theology. So my thing is really ministry. Because I just look for the pastoral applications of whatever it is that the church teaches. Right. Going back to the journey. So if you start at the crowd, like really their mindset is that of a consumer, right? So they're there, and you see it in some of the passages, like the multiplication of the bread,
right?
Like they're hungry. They went and they see the miracle, and then sometime later they go and they follow Jesus because they're hungry again, right? So whenever you go into the 72, you still have some of that, but it's not only that. Like they still have like a sort of like a consumer mentality,
right?
But I call it they have a mentality of a servant consumer, right? So they're still consuming. They're still being formed by Christ. They're still like have to see the signs, have to see the miracles, like all these things. But but now they're being sent out, right?
Right.
So part of the formation that they go through is that not only do certain things are explained to them, but they're also being sent out to prepare the way for Christ. and all that stuff. When you get into the 12, you're starting to see more of a leader mentality, but
Right.
it's a servant leader. It's a servant leadership, which is what Jesus tells the apostles at the Last Supper, right? I did not come to be served, but to
Right.
serve, and that's what they're supposed to do. With the 3, you do see that there are certain secrets that are revealed to them. Right, so the transfiguration, and this is not the secret or whatever. Like it's just a way to see that that there are chosen few that get to see things that others don't get to see, and they're typically the ones that are called to now form the leaders, right?
Right.
Or that's the framework that I use. And then eventually you get to the last one, right? Like to the one that's sitting at the feet of the cross, and that's just it's a servant saint, right?
Right.
So those that have completely given up their lives to Christ and for the service of others. So that really is a journey that we're all on, and it's
Yeah.
very, very important for us to realize or to sort of assess where we are in that journey. And I think seeing it in that framework, it's just am I still a consumer? Do I have a need to do this? And there's obviously different layers of it. There's more depth into it. But being able to figure out where you are in that journey, then it's going to be easier for you to get to the next one.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe someday I'll be at the foot of the cross. Not today.
That's the call,
Yeah.
right? That's a vocation. The baptismal vocation to holiness is it's that.
Yeah. And so what you're sharing about our journey as disciples of Christ it speaks to the part of me that can easily get tripped up when I'm not at this particular perfection. Right, I'm taking an assessment, right, of my spiritual life. I have a spiritual director. I'm going to confession in a certain amount of time, and then I have this tremendous weakness in an area, or I fall really hard, and I'm not in the discipleship journey where I should be, or at this point I should be here, and it's a living journey, right? With we've packed one bag over our shoulder, and it's just this fat, gigantic knapsack of concupiscence. And it's just, I'm taking it along with me on this journey, and it's very heavy. And at times I think it can be discouraging, but to hear you say that it's this journey and all these stages of it, and where Peter denies Jesus at his stage, so far along in that journey, it's very, it just speaks to that, the temptation to say that I'm not perfect enough, I'm not good enough, and therefore, why am I even trying so hard? And I think a lot of people struggle with. And so in that journey, wherever you are, when you're walking with someone who's, I don't know, further behind on that journey, or they're just say somebody is really into, they don't practice the faith. Maybe they were baptized maybe they're baptized Catholic, maybe in another Christian faith, but they're interested in learning more, but they are very much living a secular life, or somebody who has been in the faith for years and years and years, and they're practicing, but they're very attached to certain things. How do you accompany people at different stages, and what does that look like for those of us who, for me, the more you and I learn, I think, I don't know, I can't speak for you, but the more I learn, the more I realize I don't know, right? But then I meet people who are wow, you know so much. Can you tell me about this? And they'll ask questions, and you start to, I'm happy to walk with them, right? But it's so, it's very humbling, right, when somebody comes to you and wants to know about the faith. But how do you, as someone who talks too much, I think, when people come to me, I forget some of the most important aspects of journeying along, accompanying someone, which is not talking over them, pretty much. So because they're asking all these questions and they're excited, and it kind of can spark your excitement, right? And recall when you were coming back to the faith, and so you're oh yeah, and this resource, and read this book, and do this, and make sure you go to mass, and and go to confession, and those are all great things, but nobody wants to be lectured back into the faith. I wasn't lectured back into the faith, So how do we realistically accompany people and disciple them into that journey you were speaking about?
So there's I would say that there are a couple of things, right? One is that we typically don't even know the context of those that come and talk to us, right? Like even if they're family members. So so there. Maybe I'll go back and share with Elle. I wrote a book a few years ago called "Making Intentional Disciples," and in there she has a framework that she took from somebody else. Again, to be honest, right now I don't remember the original, I guess, creators of this framework. But it's the thresholds of conversion, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in this thresholds of conversion, like what happens is that in the beginning everything starts with trust, right? So you need to there has to be some kind of like a trust connection to Christ or the church, right? And then once they get past that, they go into curiosity, and then once so they're curious about the faith, but they're still not seeking, right? So then they go into seeking, and then after seeking, no, sorry, hold on. I'm after curiosity is openness, so openness to the faith, and then they start to seek, and then eventually they intentionally start following Christ. So this is another good framework just to try to, like, whenever somebody comes and talks to you, just try to figure out where they are. So I have my own framework for accompaniment that I think matches very good with this one, which is, I call it the laws of accompaniment. Sorry, I am Mexican, so it's LAWS. So L starts for.
You're saying laws.
Yeah, sure. So it's you have to listen first, and really the sign of a good listener is that they ask a lot of questions, because you're trying to understand that context. You're trying to figure out where they are. So you're not. So the W is for wait. So and you have to wait. I mean, just sometimes like people are not open. So
wait. So law. You're saying laws. LAWS. It's listen, ask
listen,
questions.
Wait.
Wait.
So you wait for openness.
For like 5 minutes, or
we can talk about that after the break, because that's probably the most important one out of the four.
Okay.
Parts of the framework, and then the last one is speak. So at the very, very end, you actually speak. Okay.
Listen, ask, wait, and speak. Laws. That's your framework for accompanying
people. Exactly.
Okay. All right. I'm excited to unpack that. We chatted a little about it earlier, but I already need a refresher. Not because I wasn't paying attention, but maybe I am a worse listener than I thought. You're listening to The Quest, formerly a Life Lived Joyfully on the Guadalupe Radio Network. I'm your Monday, Thursday host, Sarah Soto. We have two fantastic other hosts, Monsignor Charles Pope on Tuesdays and Fridays, and Steve Gleason, the wonderful Steve Gleason, on Wednesdays. You can listen to us every Monday through Friday at 4 p.m. Central, 5 Eastern. You can listen on our Guadalupe Radio Network app or stream from grnonline.com. We have Mauricio Romero in the studio today talking about discipleship and accompaniment. We'll be back to unpack his fantastic acronym after a short break.
This is Life News Radio. I'm Jim Anderson. The Supreme Court Wednesday denied standing in a free speech claim against censorship by big tech and government. But it is not all entirely bad news for free speech. Lead plaintiff, Missouri AG Andrew Bailey, says Missouri is not done. The High Court ruled not on merits of the case, but on standing, which in turn allows Missouri attorneys to dig deeper into the case at lower courts and essentially discover more dirt. That is something which alleged social media censors won't view favorably. There's been another leak at the Supreme Court, this time attributed to a mistakenly published document. It is not a ruling, but the documents seem to show the court prepared to rule against an Idaho abortion ban, faced with Biden administration attempts at creating emergency room abortions. This is Life News Radio.
Persecution around the world has manifested itself through the centuries, but it is worse today than ever before. Aid to the Church in Need and its donors have been there to help since 1947, never abandoning the church or her most vulnerable children. Will you stand up for your faith and accompany our brothers and sisters on their spiritual journey? Visit churchinneed.org. churchinneed.org. Pundits preparing to cover Thursday's presidential debate say Joe Biden has lost support of 18% of his voters from the 2020 election. They anticipate Mr. Biden's debate strategy to try and swing those voters away from third-party candidates. As pro-life advocates predicted in last year's unlimited abortion election, courts are using Michigan's recent abortion amendments to eliminate important safety regulations covering abortion providers. For pro-life headlines delivered to your email address daily, sign up at lifenews.com. This has been Life News Radio.
You're listening to The Quest, a pilgrimage of faith. Have a question or something to share? Call the show live at 877-757-9424.
You're here on The Quest, formerly A Life Lived Joyfully, and I'm so excited to have Mauricio Romero, or as friends call him, Mao, that's why I call him Mauricio, on the show today with Discipleship, period, literally, P-E-R-I-O-D. I had to have spelled that right. Oh my gosh. If you heard the brief cameo during the last segment, I really am a Catholic wife and mom. And they're really, you probably didn't hear, and so just in case you did, it was our 20-month-old saying, "I love The Quest, it's my favorite show on Catholic radio." That's how 20-month-old children speak. Anyway, it's such a joy to be with you here on The Quest on the Guadalupe Radio Network. Today, Mauricio Romero and I are talking about the journey of discipleship and accompanying people on that journey of discipleship, which is not linear. And it's certainly not all in black and white. It's got to go the same way for everyone all the time. It looks differently for different people with different gifts and so on and so forth, but the ultimate goal is sacramental communion with the Most Holy Trinity. And Mauricio has an acronym that he shared right before the break, and we're going to unpack that for you all. An acronym to help us as we accompany folks on their journey, on their discipleship journey, and that acronym is LAWS. How do you say?
Yeah, laws.
I
feel like Sean Connery.
You know what's funny is you don't sound like him at all, but I'm glad that you.
In my head, it does.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Said every guy ever. I feel like Sean Connery right now. No, you don't. Don't worry. No one's going to confuse you for Sean Connery. Laws.
Especially because I don't grow a beard. You know.
You do grow like a Don Juan, it's like a very particular type of facial. Again, this is a radio, so I'll spare you the details. But we're talking about this great acronym Mauricio has come up with, this framework for accompanying people in discipleship, and that's LAWS. LAWS stands for, let's see if I can remember, am I a good host? Listen, ask, wait, and then speak. Listen, ask, wait, and speak. So listening, I feel like I very rarely say, "Wow, you're a really good listener," to people. It's almost like sometimes when I'm having a conversation with someone, they're like anxiously tapping their foot until they can say, "Okay, it's my turn." Mm-hmm. And that's like not meant to be like pointed or offensive to anyone. I find myself doing the same thing, right? So I'm like, sometimes I'm just waiting for you to shut up.
Yeah, no, it feels more like a debate and not a conversation, right? Mm-hmm. So I think we're in a culture of debate, even with our friends, right?
Yeah.
So we just we want to say our piece and peace, whatever. I did say I was Mexican.
I was looking up in the air. I wasn't saying you sounded weird. I was trying to be a good listener. It's
okay. It's okay. I'm an experienced Mexican. I know what.
experienced Mexican mean?
Yeah, no.
You're used to women rolling their eyes. I'm going to make you a t-shirt that says experienced Mexican.
Experienced Mexican. That would be a cool t-shirt. T-shirt.
And then on the sleeve. See, I am an experienced Mexican t-shirt. On the sleeve, we'll do the little eye rolling emoji. Just on the sleeve, like a little subtle, you know what I'm talking about? So how do you be a good, how are you a good listener? What does that look like? It's not screaming back and forth, just yelling your point.
So the first one and the first letter in the acronym and the second one really go hand in hand, right? Like, so it's this, if you were really listening, you would be asking questions that would get you deeper into the mind of the other. So you to try to empathize, to try to understand. Like, empathy has been, in my opinion, has been greatly
diminished.
Diminished, yeah, because we've reduced it to, it's like, oh, I feel the same thing that you're feeling, right? So it's just like, you're hurting, I'm hurting. It's just like, well, it really has to do more with being in the other's shoes, but not only emotionally, but try to really get into the mindset of the other, right? So then as somebody sharing something with you, it's like, are you more concerned about, like, responding, or are you more concerned about, like, going into a deeper of the understanding of what they're going through? It's very easy to do this if you just ask a lot of questions. So it doesn't matter if you spend literally years asking questions, because most people just want to talk. Most people want to be listened to.
Yeah.
So which is why it's really hard to find somebody that actually listens. We all hear people, but we don't actually listen to people, right? So listening it's really putting yourself outside of the equation, as in, like, whenever you're talking, this is not about me, this is about you. So whenever we don't listen, it really is about me, and I want to share my insights, I want to share my wisdom, I want to share, like, these things, like, I will solve your life. Like, well, that's not actual listening, right?
Yeah.
So take yourself out, like, don't try to gain anything from it. Which then it comes to the third one, where it's like, you just wait, and you wait until there is openness from the other to actually to pass on the baton and, like, go into a listening mode. And just think about it. If you're not used to listening to people, what makes you think that the one that's sharing something with you is also it's gonna be good at listening, right?
Yeah.
So if you're not good at listening, don't expect the person that's talking to you to be a good listener either. So then the way that you turn the other one into a good listener is by listening first.
Listening well
so
first. Yeah.
it's this whole, like, and going back to something that was maybe said very briefly, but the Gospels, like, if you just look at the Bible, if you look at the Gospels, like, you see all these patterns. And this one's very basic, right? It's just like, we are called to be witnesses of what we believe in, right? So if by us giving witness of what we believe in, then others would follow suit, right? So if you want people to listen, then you just have to show them what listening actually looks like. And sometimes it's just a matter of waiting. And this is not waiting for, like, 5 minutes. This is not waiting for, like, even a couple of days.
I was going to say, I can tap out probably about an hour.
Yeah.
Of
Sometimes you
to
have to wait for years because people are just sometimes not ready. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't, like, as you're going through this journey with them, which is why I call it the loss of accompaniment, because this is really about accompaniment. So whenever you want a quick fix, it's like somebody comes and talks to you and they tell you their life story or whatever, they're crying, and then you want to fix the problem right there and then. You don't want to accompany them. You just want to fix their problems.
Right. Well, I can only speak about Americans because I am an American.
I've been here for 30 years.
Well, you're also an American.
Yeah.
I know, but I mean, as I'm listening to you say this, I'm thinking there is a certain level of discomfort that people have when it comes to sitting in the really, really great sufferings of life. And that's why we don't, go sit down at like H&R Block to have our taxes done and say, I have complex post-traumatic stress disorder from watching my family be, robbed in front of me, and I have panic attacks every time I unlock the door to my house, because that's how you don't like, obviously that's like something you keep close to your heart, but it's like you don't, we're not used to, and especially Americans, we're not used to putting all our cards on the table, because that kind of vulnerability is very, it's scary. What are people going to do with it? And so I think my tendency anyway to solve people's problems and to share my wisdom and to fix everything right away is kind of a subconscious way of me saying, like, I can't listen to how uncomfortable you are. I can't listen to how miserable you are. Not because I'm like, I
it's like your misery makes me uncomfortable.
I'm so uncomfortable, but like, how many times do we, like you're saying in the Gospels, how many times do we witness our Lord like sitting with people in the crumminess of life? And that's a huge part of, when I had our son, it was the most difficult experience. I just talked a little bit about it. It was super traumatic. It was one of the most difficult times of my life, but I had all this amazing advice from priests. I had a priest friend texting me saying, like, I didn't need ordination, or I needed ordination and you didn't. Like, you're living this priestly life through this suffering. It's just beautiful, right? This beautiful commentary on like the suffering I was experiencing. But the advice that like really penetrated my heart was, the only way out is through, and Jesus is going to sit with you through it the entire way. And he's not going to like magically make it disappear. He's going to sit with you in it. And sometimes, and when we accompany people, we have to sit with them in it, despite our discomfort, right? And so if you're having to walk with someone for months and months, and sometimes even years and years, and you're watching them maybe make bad decisions, right? Like commit serious sins, be miserable, when that all they would have to do is break off that relationship. All they would have to do is stop doing drugs. Like, you know what I mean? These like simple things. You're like, obviously, all you need to do is this. Sometimes it's not, and like you're saying, if you're not a good listener and you expect them to just listen to you all of a sudden when you offer this advice, and I think that's probably the hardest part for me about this LAWS acronym, right? The acronym of accompaniment that you're talking about, which, sure, I can listen, right, until I don't want to anymore, which I become too uncomfortable, and I can ask questions, right? I can even feign like asking questions like, oh, and what was that like for you? And how did it make you feel? Without like true curiosity, because you really need to get curious about people, right? You really need to, where are they coming from? And that's actually translates not just for accompanying people as disciples, but does that help you in parenting at all?
Oh yeah, definitely. So going back to just a little bit, because you touched on it, until people you need to be curious about people. So this is why I say that the Sherry Waddell's thresholds of conversion really fit in well with this, because you start identifying, like whenever you listen and you start asking questions, then you start identifying where people are, right? It's like, are they in this stage where they're curious? Are they in this stage where they're actually seeking?
Right.
Then whenever you look at the, at the journey of discipleship, it's like, are they do they have a consumer mentality? Do they have a servant consumer mentality? Like, so you start identifying like these things. So it becomes like, honestly, like at this point, it's become a form of this is gonna sound bad, but it is very enjoyable for me to do it, because it sort of becomes like a game where I'm trying to figure out what people are at. And I know that it sounds bad, but just kind of bear with me.
Definitely sounds bad, yeah.
Because it's not that I'm playing games with people, but it's more of like now that you know the rules, like it's you can beat the game, and the thing is, like, beating the game is like in strategy. I don't want to sidetrack, but in strategy, like
the queen of sidetracking. So
yeah. So one of the things whenever you're defining strategy is it's having a winning aspiration, right? And then figuring out like, where do you want to play and how do you want to win? So And one of the things that you have to do is figure out what the rules of the game are in order for you to develop strategies that are actually going to help you win in the game. So, like, even though, like, you know, we really are in the game of life. So if you figure out the rules of discipleship, then you're gonna be able to win. And that's the thing, because our call is to make disciples. So
it's to win souls for heaven.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, you're not like belittling, right? You're not
No,
saying
no.
like, oh, it's a game.
It's
let's
more
make
of like, it's exciting, you know, to know that there's something that I can do very concretely.
To help win souls for heaven, right? To answer and respond to the Great Commission. That's a much better way. Start with that.
Sure.
Next time, lead with that. We're talking with Mauricio Romero today about accompaniment in disciples on the Guadalupe Radio Network. I'm your Monday, Thursday host of The Quest. We'll be right back.
Hello, this is Steve Gleason with your 1-minute tool for Catholic evangelism. Here's the question for your non-Catholic friend. Your church most likely has a praise and worship time. Would you be surprised to know that the songs you sing might have nothing to do with worship? So here's your 3 best friendship tools for Catholic evangelism. Number 1, history. Praise and worship was not a term used until the mid-60s when the Jesus People music started becoming more complex and contemporary. By the late 70s, praise and worship had become an entire entity of its own. Secondly, what is worship? It's a sacrifice. It's not singing a soft, flowy song with hands raised. The New Testament writers understood that worship was a sacrifice, that it occurred on an altar, which was and is known as a place of slaughter. Thirdly, the altar is for you. Jesus, in the holy sacrifices of the Mass, invites you to participate in His timeless sacrifice of love that truly occurs on the altar. No nightclub effects, no entertainment, no pumped-up emotion. Oh, and please don't register for the next Praise and Worship Global Seminar. Why? Because you can't teach praise and it won't include worship. Yikes.
It was somewhat of an accident, and I have a lot of windshield time driving for work, and usually I'm listening to my gospel music, and so I wanted to find something else different, and so I started scrolling. I found Guadalupe Radio. I started listening to it on a regular basis, and what I realized, had I found this station years ago, my conversion would have probably happened years ago.
The Guadalupe Radio Network, radio for your soul.
This is The Quest from the studios of the Guadalupe Radio Network. Share the show with a friend. You can find us on social media. Want to listen again? We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you enjoy listening to podcasts.
Hey y'all, welcome back to The Quest, formerly Life Lived Joyfully. We're so excited about our rebrand as we are on a pilgrimage of faith together. I'm a Catholic wife, mom, and speaker. You may have heard my son screeching how much he loves The Quest and all the new branding earlier. That's our sweet boy. Always supporting mom. My website, Soto Speaks. I know I sound like Sarasota, Florida, but it's really just one letter off. Sarah, my husband gets after me. Soto. That's how he prefers Soto. Sarah Soto Speaks. I do be speaking, and now I'm embarrassed because of our topic today that my website is all about how much I'm talking. Today we have Mauricio Romero in the studio. We're talking about discipleship, accompaniment, discipleship and accompaniment. Mau, M-A-U, at discipleship, period.com is talking about the laws of accompaniment, of listening, asking questions, waiting, and then speaking, not just speaking all the time without ever like a human bulldozer. So we're talking about his great acronym for discipleship, which I love the way he pronounces so clearly. That's laws. L-A.
The funny thing is that every time I present it, like, people are like, I can see the confusion in people's faces.
Well, you're such a good listener and observer.
Yeah.
It's funny because when you first said it to me earlier or before the show, I understood exactly what you were saying. Do you think I just speak Mau now?
Probably.
I just understand.
Yeah,
you, right?
no, because I've presented it several times, and it's just like
people look at you like their eyes crossed.
Like, what is he talking about? And then I started going listening, ask, and they're like, thought it was O. I thought the next one was O.
So they think you're saying
loss, L-O-S-S.
Oh, okay. Actually, now that you're saying it, I can hear that. But you're not. You're saying laws. L-A-W-S.
Yeah.
So laws stands for listen, ask, wait, and speak. And like a dagger to my heart, you're saying listen. You're listening, and you're listening with curiosity. You're trying to get to the bottom. And so in a more practical application of laws, listen, ask, wait, and speak. Let's say that you and I meet, right? And I'm having a struggle at work, and I am a proud Catholic, but I'm just having a difficult time. I'm single, and I'm having a difficult time picking or dating. I'm having a really difficult time dating, and I'm experiencing loneliness, and that loneliness is kind of creeping in to the point where I'm tempted to lower my standards, or to let go of some of them, like the values that I have, right? And I encounter you, and you want to accompany me, right? And you're trying to make a disciple out of every nation, including me. And so I come to you, and I'm letting you know about this situation. What does it look like for you? And let's say we're working in the same environment, right? We work at the same place. Let's say that I come to you, and I begin to open up about the struggles of, I desire marriage, and I haven't found anybody. It's so difficult, and I'm tempted just to not date anyone that's Catholic at all, or I'm tempted to date an atheist, or whatever it is. I want family so badly. It's very heartbreaking for me. What is practically listening to someone who is experiencing those, I don't want to say problems, but walking in that part of their life, in that journey? What does listening to them look like for you? And practically, what are you doing when what are you listening for, is what I mean.
So one is you do have to be very observant, so you have to pick up on body language. And typically whenever somebody tells you something, especially if it's just like right there, like you're sitting at at a lunch table or whatever, and maybe it's just the two of you or whatever, it will typically not start at any kind of depth level, So then you just start. It's very simple. You start asking. It's like, why do you think that is? Or like, what? Like, for example, if you were to tell me, it's like, you know what? It's like I'm tired. It's like I like this whole Catholic dating scene. Like I've tried all the apps and whatever, blah blah blah. It's like, I think I'm just gonna go outside of the Catholic world. Then they could just be like, okay. It's like, why are you like? So why do you think that you need to get married right now? And then it's like, well, it's just like all my friends are getting married and blah 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 blah, all that stuff, and it's like, okay. It's like, so all of your friends are getting married, good. And
that's not out of judgment. Right?
No.
You're not saying, why do you think you need to get married right now, huh?
Yeah, no.
Like,
it's more like a legitimate
curiosity.
question. It's like, hey, it's like, is there a reason why you think that you have to get married right now?
Yeah.
It's like, well, my biological clock is ticking or whatever.
It's
like, okay. And it doesn't mean that you have to constantly be like asking questions, but it's just like, so it's like, why do you want to have a kid? And then the thing with me is that I don't mind going for the kill, like very early on. So
something I'm familiar with. Yes.
But it really depends. It really depends on the person. So like some people might be very, very like at a very early stage of the conversation. I could go in right away and just say, you know what, like, and what if you can never have a kid, right? Like what if you like just you like what would that be like for you? And then you just get a response. Like the thing is that I don't have to solve anything. Like I just have to like be really open to whatever it is that they're struggling with, and then just kind of like just by asking them questions, it's like a very Socratic method, you know, just like you just ask questions and in the hopes that people are gonna get to an answer. So, but it all comes just out of, you know, just being legitimately like wanting to know like what they're going through. Like I'm not trying to
That's
pick
what I was
up.
gonna
I'm
say.
not trying to pick up cues so that I can fit my answer into whatever it is that you're saying. I'm like legitimately like interested in.
You
want to
know where they're coming
It's like
from,
why,
yeah.
like what, like. And then at that point, depending on the relationship, I could be like, so is this something that like, are you like, is this something like, are you getting pressure from your parents? Like, it's just like, no, yeah. It's like, and at this point, it's like, I haven't even said anything. I'm just like, I'm literally just asking questions.
But you've said so much.
I've said so much by asking questions, but I
Right.
haven't said anything.
Yeah.
So I haven't given any kind of advice or anything.
Right.
So listening only. It's not just about you not speaking. It really is about echoing what the other one is telling you. So like the way that that somebody will know that you're listening is if you echo what they're telling you back to them with an ask for clarification or depth, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So you do that, and then you wait, and then you wait, and then you wait. And you know, I've literally like waited for people for 8 years for me to say something that I know that I needed to say, but they were not ready to hear. And when I said it,
walk with someone in a company for 8 years when you know something that they need to know, right? And you have it like right there, and you know that it's an important thing for them to know, and it's an important piece of information for them to have. And we only have like a minute or so left, but like, tell me before we close the show today, how do you know that it was 8 years later that you're like, now I can say it?
First,
I'll start 8 minutes.
I'll start with why it's okay to wait, because Jesus waited for 3 years for the apostles and the coming of the Holy Spirit for them to understand what they needed to understand, and he waited 30 years to go into public life so that the world may see the fullness of revelation. So then, how do we know that it's okay to wait? Because Jesus himself waited. And if you legitimately care for the others, if you legitimately care for the person that you're listening to, you will see the opening. I guarantee you will see it.
It's like they're ready for help.
They're ready. They're gonna be.
They're ready for love. They're ready
It's
to be
almost
loved.
like they're gonna scream at you. Please tell me.
Where do I go from here? What do I
what
do?
God wants to say. Yeah.
Because you've
out of
loved
me.
them through listening
Yeah.
and curiosity. Ugh. For more information from Discipleship Period, you can email MAU at Discipleship Period. That's PERIOD.com. To learn more about laws and discipleship and accompaniment from our great guest, Mauricio Romero. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you.
It's
My
a
pleasure.
great pleasure to have you on. Join us every Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Eastern, here on The Quest, formerly A Life Lived Joyfully. As always, thanks for listening. I'm your host on Monday, Thursday, Sarah Soto. God bless you.
Faith, hope, charity. This is the Guadalupe Radio Network.